All right, fireworks disposal, here we are.
I'm going to invite the State Fire Marshal Tanya Hoover and our Deputy Director of Legislation, Caroline Godkin, up.
Personnel.
All right.
Madam Chair, staff just has informed me too. I did request in writing on that, Mr. Pimlott, and we did not get anything, so. Okay.
All right, thank you. Yes?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Caroline Godkin, Deputy Director for Legislation at CAL FIRE. And Senator, just on that, well, I'll follow up with your staff and make sure we get that over to you. On the proposal for fireworks, the administration is requesting $5 million from the Toxic Substances Control account to dispose of around £500,000 of seized dangerous and illegal fireworks. And that's both fireworks that were remaining from the July 4th, 2014 period and also what we're expecting for the July 4th, 2015 period. The funding requested is to pay for a hazardous waste contractor to sort, pack and ship these dangerous and illegal fireworks out of state for disposal. In the current year, we've shipped around about £220,000 with the funding that was allocated in last year's budget. However, there's around about £164,000 held by local law enforcement and fire that we haven't been able to ship because we don't have funding for that. We have requested one-time funding because we are looking at trying to develop a long-term solution for fireworks. The administration is currently in negotiations with all the stakeholders regarding looking at a model somewhat similar to an extended producer responsibility model for fireworks, somewhat similar to mattresses and batteries. As I say, we're currently in the negotiations with that, and we're looking to put that through the policy bill process, which is why we're requesting one-time funding. Part of this model may be working to refine the state's existing definitions of hazardous waste to allow some different management strategies, particularly of the 60 to 80% of the fireworks which are currently still in their original wholesale packaging. And we're hoping to have that in place for the July 4th, 2016 period. So that's, again, why we're requesting the one-time funding. Just a note on the staff recommendation, the $3 million would not be enough to ship the full amount that we're expecting, but both that we have on hand and that we're expecting through this year. It would leave around about a third of the fireworks sitting with local fire and law enforcement without their ability to be able to ship and dispose of those.
All right, thank you. Further comment? All right. All right, there are two recommendations. Senator Nielsen, go ahead.
As to the disposal, you're indicating that $3 million is not sufficient. Can you submit to us a schedule of what would be required? In other words, the poundage, the tonnage, the location to which these things would be moved to be disposed of, the disposal cost. So we have a true figure. You say $3 million is not enough. Well, what is it going to cost?
It would be about $5 million. It's around about $10 a ton. $10 a pound to sort, pack, and ship for disposal with the hazardous waste contractor.
And where is the approved site to which these are being trucked?
It's a federally approved RCRA site in Louisiana. It's an incinerator in Louisiana.
All right.
All right. All right. All right, there are two different recommendations. One is to approve $3 million of general fund for shipment of fireworks to the appropriate RCRA certified disposal sites, which do exist out of state. And then the second is for $500,000 from a different account for DTSC in coordination with the Water Resources Control Board to contract to produce a protocol, which you were describing, for the disposal of these materials within the state and for locals to increase incentives to impose penalties on the sale of illegal and dangerous fireworks. These are piling up, and there's no real good reason for that. So let's separate those two. And is there any public comment on either one? Come forward.
Good morning, Chair Woke and members of the committee. Dennis Ravel appearing on behalf of American Promotional Events, better known as TNT Fireworks. We support the administration's request and the amount. Ms. Godkin is correct in that even given those filings that local jurisdictions have made with the State Fire Marshal's Office, the $3 million would not be sufficient to cover the 2014 seizures, let alone those done in 2015. We support the staff's recommendation that the source of that money be general fund and not the Toxic Substance Control Act, and that we are working with the administration and hope, for the first time, hold great hopes that there will be a consensus position moving forward between all stakeholders to solve this problem.
Thank you very much. Further public comment? All right, Senator Pavley?
Yeah, just a comment or two. I don't know if the timing is appropriate, but we don't feel like we have the more specific information and justification for going up to $5 million. Obviously, we want it disposed of and not half of it left in the state. So if there is time before it goes forward to look at that for discussion, that would be helpful to me in any final deliberations. But your comment on producer responsibility, where are these fireworks that are so hazardous being produced?
So about 60 to 80% of the seized dangerous and legal fireworks are federally legal consumer fireworks.
Right, they're illegal, so our general fund has to pay for cleanup of illegal fireworks. Yeah.
So they're legal for sale outside of California, just not for sale in California.
Right, illegal. So how do you affect producer responsibility if they're being made out of California?
And that's something that, as Mr. Ravel mentioned, we're in discussions with the Safe and Sane fireworks industry in California, which is the legal product in California, on how to develop and fund that model going forward.
This needs to be worked through. That's the purpose.
There's a little challenge there because they're illegal, so it's hard to have a fee for producer responsibility of collecting it, and they're made out of state. There's a double problem.
All right, the motion is to approve $3 million, and with the understanding that the more information that we get from the department, the better a recommendation we can support. So at the moment, it's $3 million for the general fund. I've had a request to split the items, so let's move that one first. Is there a motion?
So move, and with my comment again on this is a May revision request.
Yeah.
And we probably could have gotten the information. We probably could have gotten the information if it was in January, in time to appropriate the $5 million, which may be needed.
All right, that is a motion. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolf?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
3-0, that is approved. And now approve the $500,000 from the TSCA account to do the protocol, to talk about, to do something about the disposal of materials more broadly, as well as to deal with the local incentives to impose penalties so that we reduce the stock, or we enable the shipment of fireworks or the disposal of the fireworks. So with that, is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, please call the roll.
Senator Wolf?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, 2-1, that is approved. All right, let's move on to the Department of Toxic Substances Control, another problem area that we have a very complicated and thorough set of proposals on page 21 and 22.
It made my comments on daughter look tame compared to this one.
Yeah, definitely. This is
And poor Barbara,
This is a big one. I'm not sure I understand items 1. Before we begin, I want to make sure I understand the 1-3. All right, so. But what is this? Item 1? Oh, I see. I get it. All right. Okay. All right. We have a complicated set of recommendations. Welcome. Glad to see you here. So how long has it been? 6 months? A year?
No,
5 months.
5 months. Ah,
you walked into a buzzsaw.
yes, welcome to the buzzsaw. All right, here we go. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Barbara Lee, and I'm the new director at the Department of Toxic Substances Control. With me today is Ms. Miriam Ingenito, my Chief Deputy Director. As we discussed in the oversight hearing in March, the department began our Fixing the Foundation initiative in 2012. It was designed to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and accountability of the department's cleanup, enforcement, and pollution prevention programs. Under this initiative, we carefully assess and then systematically improve the department's performance of its core responsibilities. We have completed 248 of the 287 specific actions spelled out in the initiative, and we are nearing completion of the remaining actions. This effort has resulted in significant changes in how DTSC serves the public. Our reports to you in the last 2 years have focused on cost recovery and permitting. With resources you provided in the current fiscal year, we have redesigned our cost recovery system to resolve costs that were previously unaccounted for and to ensure complete recovery and accurate tracking going forward. We have also applied advanced process management systems to our permitting program to decrease permit processing time and improve permit quality and effectiveness. In the coming year, we propose to use the same critical approaches to evaluate and systematically improve our compliance and enforcement program. The outcomes of the initiative will be measurable and accountable actions that ensure hazardous wastes are managed safely and legally to prevent harm to public health and the environment, particularly in communities most impacted by hazardous waste generators and facilities. We also will begin to strategically embed principles of equal protection, community responsiveness, and public accountability into all of our core programs. Another major component of our efforts has been to expand research capabilities and accelerate the rate at which consumer products containing toxic chemicals are evaluated and identified for inclusion in our Safer Consumer Products program. In the coming year, we propose targeted enhancements in our resources that support this program, as well as updating key equipment in our laboratories. As you know, I have been the director now for 5 months. During this time, I have traveled throughout the state to meet with residents of impacted communities and hear their concerns firsthand. I have also met with members of the legislature and other stakeholders. In addition, I have focused on the inner workings of the department and how to make our work more accountable and more transparent. One of the things that I have learned from our experience, in particular at the Exide facility, is that we need to enhance our enforcement program. The sooner we can begin a review of our enforcement program, as proposed in our May budget request, the sooner we can implement improvements to better protect vulnerable communities. There are several key items I believe are especially urgent and should not be delayed to a future budget year. The budget before you includes May revision proposals to request additional resources that respond to urgent concerns I have identified in these last 5 months. These are improvements, again, that I believe can't wait. I would like to thank your staff for providing their thoughtful recommendations on our proposals. We support staff recommendations 1, 2, 3, and 4. With respect to recommendations 5, 6, and 7, we respectfully ask that you approve our budget as proposed by the Governor. I would like to underscore that the administration fully appreciates the concerns expressed by the Senate and the desire of your members for greater transparency and accountability at DTSC. I am personally committed to providing this to you and to the public. I anticipate having the opportunity to do this in a variety of forums in the coming months, and I look forward to working with you to develop and implement durable platforms to allow you and any interested members of the public to understand and to engage in our decisions and actions on a regular basis. With the permission of the Chair, I would now like to provide a brief explanation of 4 key proposals that are part of the Governor's May revision, so you can understand why I believe delaying their implementation would not serve the interests of this body or the residents of California.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Our first May revised letter addresses position realignment. This proposal will correctly align the department's site cleanup resources in the form of staff hours with the appropriate funding source for the work we need to focus on. The department currently has over 2,600 contaminated properties awaiting investigation or cleanup. This includes more than 160 current and former military installations, as well as thousands of sites that are either a state or national priority, and sites where property owners, or potential developers have offered to perform voluntary cleanup to return the land to beneficial use. In short, the sites needing cleanup far outstrip the resources available to address them, and the department has to carefully prioritize our activities. In anticipation of receiving additional federal funds from the Department of Defense for cleanup at high-priority military sites, the legislature approved in fiscal year 2012-13 a shift in staffing from DTSC's Toxic Substances Control Account, or TSCA, to its federal grant funding. The additional federal funding would have paid for the equivalent of 18 staff positions, or 37,440 hours of cleanup work at military sites. The department did not hire new staff, but the shift increased the number of staff hours we were authorized to bill to federal grants, and it decreased the number of staff hours we could bill to TSCA. Unfortunately, the new federal funds did not materialize. As a result, cleanup at those high-priority military sites did not occur. Because the shift decreased the hours we could bill to the TSCA fund, it also resulted in fewer resources for other cleanup obligations and a slower pace of cleanups overall. The department absorbed the shortfall in federal funding through a variety of internal cost-cutting measures, primarily by holding open positions and deferring or eliminating key expenditures. Additionally, this has impacted all departmental training, travel to do critical work, and even legal work with the Attorney General's office. Because it is clear the federal funding will not be forthcoming, the department proposes to assign these staff hours to the TSCA fund as they were originally funded. This will allow us to resume the deferred work on state priority cleanups, including orphan sites, federal national priority list site investigations, and other voluntary cleanup activities. DTSC is therefore requesting the permanent realignment of the position funding from federal funds to TSCA in the amount of $2.44 million and the equivalent of 18 staff positions. I would like to underscore here that communities around these contaminated sites are primarily low-income communities and communities of color. In my meetings with them over the last 5 months, I have heard repeatedly that they need these sites cleaned up. The May revised proposal will allow us to better meet their needs without increasing the positions we are authorized for this program, and it will correctly align the funding sources for the work that we currently have as program priorities. Moving on to our second proposal, as I mentioned earlier, for the last 2 years, you have been hearing about the department's Fixing the Foundation initiative and its focus on cost recovery and permitting. This is important work, but the legislature and the communities that are impacted by hazardous waste across California have demanded that we improve our enforcement of hazardous waste management laws. The department is responding to those demands with our second May revised proposal to conduct a comprehensive review of DTSC's inspection and enforcement program to evaluate opportunities for improvement and to implement a clear and detailed improvement plan. The department is requesting $1.4 million and 11 limited-term positions for 2 years. With these resources, we will evaluate workload and processes for inspections, investigations, and enforcement, develop and revise compliance and enforcement criteria, standardized policies and guidance documents, and conduct a statewide assessment of our public engagement efforts to improve transparency and participation. The outcome will be measurable and accountable actions and standards for compliance and enforcement activities that will result in better protection for the public and the environment. This will allow us to demonstrate to you, the legislature, and the public what steps we take to assure compliance and how those actions affect compliance. We expect to identify compliance goals, and where sectors do not meet those goals, we will develop targeted enforcement and compliance assistance strategies to improve it. The call to improve enforcement performance has been one of the most urgent demands I have heard from your body and from the public. I intend to achieve this in a durable and structural way. It will take sustained attention, resources, and time, and it needs to start now. In addition to the comprehensive evaluation of our enforcement program, with our third May revised proposal, we are also proposing a targeted enforcement initiative in vulnerable communities. This initiative does 2 things. It builds on a metal recycling enforcement initiative that the department began in late 2012 and will expand enforcement in this sector to vulnerable communities across California. This proposal would also allow us to double the amount of targeted inspections of hazardous waste transporters in vulnerable communities, which would improve their compliance rate and reduce the amount of illegal handled hazardous waste in these communities. The department is therefore requesting $2.139 million, including funding from both TSCA and the Hazardous Waste Control account. This includes 11 limited-term positions for 3 years, 9 of which will be dedicated to inspection and enforcement of the metal recycling industry, funded through the TSCA Fund, and 2 positions dedicated to increasing inspection and enforcement activities for the hazardous waste transportation industry, funded from the Hazardous Waste Control account. As I said, in the last 5 months, in my travels to impacted communities, I have heard a number of concerns. There are hundreds of smaller metal recyclers that operate in and around vulnerable communities, and these communities are acutely aware of the impacts when these operations don't properly manage their waste. The communities have also voiced their concerns about the hazardous waste that are transported in their midst. This May revised proposal responds to these 2 key issues that have been repeatedly raised to me for my attention by these communities. And finally, in 2014, the department began implementing its groundbreaking Safer Consumer Products program, which create a new approach to finding safer alternatives to hazardous chemicals in consumer products. The 4th May revised proposal before you today reflects our assessment of what is minimally necessary for the program to deliver the actions and outcomes we have committed to in the next 2 years. DTSC is requesting $630,000 and 6 limited-term positions for 2 years. These additional resources would enable us to expand our research capabilities and accelerate the rate at which consumer products containing toxic chemicals can be evaluated and identified for inclusion in the Safer Consumer Products program. The Safer Consumer Products Program is a forward-looking program that allows us to prevent exposures to harmful chemicals through safer alternatives in products that millions of Californians use, sometimes on a daily basis. It will also provide protection for workers, especially low-wage workers who may suffer from sustained daily exposure to these harmful chemicals while they are on the job. Because this is a new program, it has very limited staffing. Without the resources requested in the May revised proposal, the Safer Consumer Products Program will not have the specialized expertise and basic staff support needed to achieve these safer alternatives, and millions of Californians will continue to be exposed to these harmful chemicals. This concludes my remarks. I appreciate your attention. If you would like me to discuss any of the other budget proposals, I would be happy to do so, but in the interest of time, I'm concluding now. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your thoroughness on this, for this department and on these issues. Needless to add that this is one of those items that the Pro Tem has a great deal of interest in, and the thoroughness with which the staff went through the recommendations and made suggestions is there. And you've heard earlier today about the unfortunate situation where these proposals come in for the May revise with, just at the last minute, often with not sufficient information, or they can be brand new, or some have major policy implications and are better dealt with or with a statute. So I'm going to recommend that we go through. First, I'd like to hear from the LAO if you have any comments.
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ashley Ames with the Analyst's Office. We just have a few comments on some of the specific May revised proposals regarding the Enhanced Enforcement Initiative proposal, which is the 11 positions and $2.1 million. We just note that these activities address an ongoing enforcement workload and are proposed to be supported by ongoing funding stream. And moreover, to the extent that the enforcement actions result in successful prosecutions, they could also increase revenue to the program. And so you might wish to consider approving them on a permanent basis that could provide some stability to the program. Regarding the position realignment, we just noted wasn't exactly clear with the positions that they still currently exist. So if the TSCA amount is increased, you might wish to ask which activities the department would perform with their increased TSCA activity, and just decide whether those positions and activities are still a high priority for TSCA given the structural imbalance of the fund. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments from anybody up here? Yes, briefly?
Briefly, right. Ellen Marati, the Department of Finance.
Yes.
We have concerns with the staff recommendations on 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and just as a matter of time, I will just focus on the major issues. On number 4, the staff recommendation is to approve budget bill language reducing the department's overall budget by 50% should certain reporting requirements not be met. First, we're not clear how this would help the department meet its mission, and second, on a technical level, it's not clear should this be executed, how it could happen. For example, if positions needed to be eliminated, the layoff process itself takes approximately 18 months. On number 6, the proposal here is similar to what was in SB 812, authored by the Pro Tem last year. While the governor agreed with the author's desire for increased transparency and accountability, he did veto the bill. In his veto message, the governor committed to personally working with the author to provide the department with the necessary authorization and adequate resources to fulfill the shared objective of improving the performance of this critically important state program. Number 7, we continue to support the May revision proposals.
That's fine. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I had one comment on the second recommendation. We still maintain that the backlog.
You're with,
I'm sorry, I'm Andrew Hull with Department of Finance. We maintain that that's a limited term workload and would like to keep that as a limited term requirement.
All right. Yeah, the recommendation is to change that.
Recommendation 2 for the permit and enforcement backlog reduction.
may I just ask?
Yes, go ahead.
Curiosity on the limited term. for items 1, 3, and 4. Is there an overall concern of so many being limited term that you can't attract people to work if they know that in 2 years they're gone?
There is a concern with that. There's a reform in the May revision to kind of look at that issue and to provide the departments with more flexibility. We work together.
Okay, just curious.
Or you disagree? There's
He
a
was about to
minority
talk and you
report
couldn't
and
look. I don't
finance.
know.
I apologize. I can't see his face from here.
Oh, he's fine.
So we think that with the reform proposed by our employee comp unit, that it will give the departments the ability, it's enhanced to attract more people to the limited term positions. Because they can use, the reform allows them to use permanent vacant positions and put them in that, so that there's a possibility that person could continue on and would be less likely to leave, for example.
All right. Any public comment on this issue, on any of the recommendations before we move forward? All right, hearing none, I have a request for splitting the items. So first, I'm going to start with the staff recommendation on page 21 with item 1, which is to approve the following proposals as proposed: biomonitoring, lab equipment, supplemental environmental project, SB 1249 metal shredder regulation, and Golden Technology expedited site remediation. I've been asked to split that, so we will have a first and entertain a motion on items 1, which is the biomonitoring, and 3, which is the metal shredder regulations on the Hill bill. So do I have a motion?
I will do that.
All right.
3.
It has been moved. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, 2-1, approved. The next piece of that is item 2, laboratory equipment supplemental environmental project, and 4, Golden Technology expedited site remediation. May I have a motion to that effect? All right, it's been moved by Senator Nielsen. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, those 2 are approved, 3-0. Now I'm moving to item 2, which has to do with the permit and enforcement backlog reduction, which we all support strongly, and approve the 16 requested positions as permanent. Require reporting language that requires the department to report by April 1st, 2016 on, and there are a series of 4 items. And we will vote on those. I believe, Senator Nielsen, you want to Okay, so let's vote on 3 and let's do 1 and 2 first. The status of permits completed compared to commitments made in the Budget Acts of 2014-15, and the number and status of permit modifications, emergency permits, and new permits. So we'll stop there, and you made the motion? All right, Senator Nielsen, please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, that is 3-0. And the last 2 items that pertain to this permit and enforcement backlog recommendation: the use of EnviroStore for compliance measures, including those prior to 2008, and 4, implementation of staff training, quality control, and data inspection and reporting of enforcement actions prior to 2008. Is there a motion? All right, it's been moved by Senator Pavley. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
All right, that is approved 2-1. Now we'll move to items 3, 5, and 7. All right, yes, 3, 5, and 7. 3 has to do with the Exide enforcement order. 5 is to reject the hazardous waste reduction funding position and trailer bill language, and the belief this is a policy bill should be vetted through the policy committees. And 7 is to reject all May revision proposals. Again, the issue of some more review. Resubmit, again, without prejudice. Please resubmit these proposals along with permanent funding and position evaluation in 2016 January. Is there a motion?
So move. And a question.
Sure, go ahead. 3-7.
Will this be in conference? Is the Assembly taking a different approach on this item?
Okay. So 3, 5, and 7, we have a motion. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
3-0. And items 4 and 6. 4 is to reduce the overall budget by 50% should the required reports 2 and 3 not be submitted on time. And 6, to approve the trailer bill language requiring the establishment of a 3-person independent review panel with a number of recommendations as to makeup and reporting. And B, the panel will advise the department's compliance with the Health and Safety Code 57007 to establish an Office of Performance, Accountability, and Transparency. Oh, and also the recommendations C, D, and E on page 22, which relate to the panel. Is there a motion? All right, that's been moved. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
All right, that is approved. Those recommendations are approved 2-1. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.